Jim Cornette.
Mm-hmm.
He's a very divisive figure. What were your experiences like with Jim and working with him in OVW?
I absolutely loved it. He was one of the key parts of my training, of me learning the business. He helped me out a lot. The Nightmare Danny Davis trained me and coached me in the ring. Rip Rogers worked me in the ring. But Jim Cornette was the guy that taught me how to be a top guy and taught me how to work the angles and work the TVs. And he wrote the TV around a lot of us that were local OVW guys when the WWE developmental guys were there. So, I mean, I was wrestling. I started in 96, and then 98 is when I think Cornette came down. So from 98 to 2004, I was wrestling as a top guy. So when I got to WWE, it wasn't such a shock on how to do it. But.
And what do you remember being kind of Cornette's big pieces of advice for you as someone who's going to be going up to WWE?
Cornette, as everyone knows, is the traditionalist, and WWE at the time wasn't like exactly what he would call his favorite type of professional wrestling. So basically, it was like kind of what they did ruined you, and I think he thought that me going out to play Eugene was definitely ruin my career, but it turned out well. I mean, I turned it around and got myself over, but I still love Jim. He's a great guy.
Did he ever, because we've done shows with Jim and he's a lot of fun, did he blow up at people as much as people think he did?
Yes.
And what would be the thing that would sort of spark it to happen in general?
When OVW had the WWE developmental guys, they sent down Cena, Brock Lesnar, Batista, Randy Orton, Victoria, Shelton Benjamin, and they would generally have one of us that had a little more experience. The original guys, Nick Dinsmore, Rob Conway, Doug Basham, Danny Basham, or Flash Flanagan, to wrestle these guys. And when we did our TV, we did it live to tape, so we weren't going to edit. And it was just when you get the countdown to go home, you got to be done. And we would be able to hit that mark every time. We knew how to do time on TV. We've been practicing it for over a year. So the first time Cornette put Randy Orton and John Cena in the main event of OVW TV, they went over by 2 minutes and 17 seconds. And Randy came back. I'm not sure if he knew, but he just kind of skedaddled out. And Cena came back. It was a good match. And he's like all proud of himself. And Cornette comes back. GD, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. And kicks a trash can, storms out, comes, God, 2 minutes and 17 seconds. Gets the baseball bat, goes out, hits his car a couple times, breaks out a window, comes back. And then Cena was like, that's the last time I ever went over on TV.
So talk about Cena a little bit. You were with him when he was in OVW. Mm-hmm. Did it seem like he was going to become the star that he is today, kind of back then?
Maybe with the movies, they're starting to tap into his potential. I mean, he was phenomenal. Like, we would do promo days, and we would just try to stump each other. Be like, okay, you've got a match against this guy, go. And then you got to cut the promo. But he was so creative. Somebody tried to get him one day. They said, you're in a 4-way Mario Kart video game against, Chef Boyardee, somebody else, and then your own nuts. And he cut a promo on 3 different characters. Each one was different, and made it believable, and did it just off the top of his head. He was so talented.
Brock Lesnar is someone who was down in OVW. What was it like working with Brock? Because he's such an elusive guy. People don't know much about him. What were your kind of experiences of being around him?
Oh, I thought he was a really nice guy. Soft-spoken, very humble. I don't know that he was comfortable in Louisville, because I think the Midwest, and I would call Louisville more the South area, kind of a different dynamic in the United States. But he was super nice, and he was the guy that drove the ring truck. He's the guy that made sure the ring was put up on time, make sure it was torn down. I mean, he really took a leadership role. And I think he did well, but his destiny was to be on the main roster, and he hadn't done bad for himself, I guess.
Yeah, he's done okay. I mean, obviously, right now it's kind of a tough spot because he's kind of been ostracized at the moment. Do you think ultimately things are going to get better for him, or do you think this is kind of the end that we've seen of Brock?
I think it depends if anything else comes out. If that is all that comes out and that's all that happened, then I don't think so. I think it could probably be forgotten. Much like I'm not going to hate to say, but Hulkster had a little incident in the past that I think after time people just might remember, but kind of not ostracizing for it. And I think if what Brock's done, which I don't think the text message or whatever it was that horrible, but if there's anything more, then it might get dirty, might get messy.
And my last question on Brock, because you were around, some people kind of think that Brock just loves money and doesn't really like wrestling. Did you get the sense when you were around him that he did love wrestling, or that it was more a job to him than a love?
I feel like he was a farm boy, and like his love was like farming and doing that kind of stuff. And then amateur wrestling, yes, and he carried that on into pro wrestling. I don't know that he didn't, I don't think he watched a whole lot of pro wrestling, so he wasn't like in love with it, but he wanted to be athletic and he wanted to be a star. So I think eventually he did, and he's learned the business well.
And, your career is really interesting because you're in OVW for all this time. They're putting you with everybody, because you're dependable to them, but you're not getting called up to the main roster.
Mm-hmm.
But in early 2004, a chain of events happen that culminate with you in a meeting with Vince McMahon and Stephanie. Tell us about that whole experience and what happened.
All right, so we got to rewind back to about 2003. I can't remember, or early to mid 2003. Ohio Valley Wrestling was the WWE developmental system, and the Hustler Rip Rogers was one of the coaches, the head coach. And Rip was always giving everybody ideas, to try to form a character and see what you can do with it. And he gave me the idea. Rip's son has autism, but the kid's like valedictorian of his college. Really smart now, but when he was younger, he could count in Korean, he could whiz on the computer, but, he'd go to school and he wasn't very social with the kids. So Rip kind of gave me the idea, what if, there's a wrestler that might not be social in the back, might not be able to tie his shoes, but the minute he gets in the ring, he can do everything he's ever seen on TV, an idiot savant. So I put that in the back of my head and continued wrestling in OVW. A couple months later, some of the agents came down. I remember it was Arn Anderson, and I pitched that to Arn Anderson. And Arn's like, no, kid, we're more reality-based now. We don't do that kind of stuff. Okay, so filed it back. A couple months go by, and the writers came down. The writers didn't come down often to OVW, and I pitched it to one of the writers. Vince would never do that. That would never happen. Okay, so I saw a lot of people complain and then get called up to the main roster. The squeaky wheel gets the oil. So I thought I would say, I told my friend Doug Basham, I think I'm going to quit and try to go to Japan. I didn't know anybody in Japan. I didn't know how to get there. I was the top babyface or top heel in my own hometown, sleeping in my own bed every night. Furthest house show was 2 miles or 20 miles, 2 hours away. So I told Doug, I think I'm going to quit and try to go to Japan. Doug tells Dean Malenko, Dean tells Johnny Ace. Next thing I know, February 2004, I'm sitting in a meeting with Vince McMahon. I want to get back to character-based wrestling. And I just pitched out that character, and he's kind of like the Rain Man of wrestling. Stephanie McMahon was also in the room, and all of a sudden Stone Cold Steve Austin walked in. I think they filmed a Saturday Night's Main Event or something that he was on. And Vince goes, Steve, have you ever seen this guy wrestle? And Steve Austin gives me the look. No, I don't think I have. I said, well, Nightmare Danny Davis trained me, because I knew that Austin and Danny had become friends in Dallas. And Austin looks at me and goes, all right, well, then you're probably one of the best. And Vince goes, all right, let's start on Monday. We didn't actually start the following Monday, but they sent me up to the office and had me film like the, coming soon type videos they used to run. And they had that for Eugene. They had me shave. And then I guess they just decided against it and just placed me right in on TV. But I don't think they thought I could pull off the character that I described to them. And I remember before I was ever on TV, I wrestled a live event against Lance Cade. And I was lucky to wrestle against Lance because Lance was really good. I think he would have been world champion if he didn't pass away. Wrestling Lance Cade in St. Louis. It was an afternoon show and the NCAA college basketball season, so the crowd wasn't that great, like 4,000 or 5,000 people. Eugene wrestled Lance Cade. Never been on TV before. Nobody knew who he was. Most of the time, those guys get booed. By the end of the match, I got beat, and then the crowd's chanting Eugene's name. And I don't think that's ever happened at a live event before. And I don't know where the character came from, but it just kind of emitted out of me, just kind of like, I tried to treat it like, how did I feel about anything when I was a kid? When I get excited for wrestling or get scared if I'm scared or bashful or, whatever it is. When I come back to the curtain after the match with Lance Cade, Hunter, Stephanie, Fit, Arn, all out of their seats, standing ovation. You embrace the character. Because a lot of guys sometimes will go out there and try to play a certain character, but not really have it in their heart or know exactly what they're doing. And like I said, I'm not sure exactly where it came from, but it just culminated. Because I've been wrestling for probably 8 years by that point. I could wrestle an hour straight, not use the same hold twice, no sweat professional. So I didn't have to think about any of that. And that's, I think, where a lot of times the newer guys are concentrated. What am I going to do next? What am I going to do next? I had that. I could do the character then. In between the moves and whatever it is that I do, what I need to be in the moment, but how would Eugene be in the moment?
And how do you then find out that when you're going to debut as Eugene, you're going to be Eric Bischoff's nephew? And what did you think of that when you heard that was going to be the idea?
I don't remember exactly when they told me. They might have told me the day that I debuted, like that afternoon, but I thought it was perfect. I mean, when the same day they told me they're going to put me with Regal, which I thought was even double perfect, because being Bischoff's nephew, I'm instantly have credibility. And being with Regal's perfection and everything, but he had been off for a while, and he came back, and he was the straight guy for the Odd Couple, and it helped me out a lot because Eugene didn't have to cover a lot of the promos and verbiage. Regal could get all that over, and I could just do Eugene in between and do comedy. We did a backstage pre-tape one time for something, and Bischoff and Regal are kind of close to the camera, conspiring to screw Eugene at the very beginning, and I'm playing in the back, and I was trying to find a fire extinguisher, and they're going, and I just hit that fire extinguisher in the middle, and they started laughing, and then Vince watched it, and he got upset because they cracked, but then he goes, well, we can't use it anyway, because whatever they were talking about was so serious, that would have taken away from the seriousness. I don't know if that answers your question.
No, it does. But because it was interesting, I was watching a clip of Eric Bischoff talking about, the Eugene character, and he put you over big and said that you were great, but he said that he was a bit underwhelmed by the idea of it, and that he wishes that at the time he had been more sensitive to stuff going on. And that kind of leads me into asking you, when you were doing that character, did you have any concern about how it would be received, or what was your kind of thought process about playing a character that is going to get attention?
So when I started doing the character on TV, no one ever came up to me and said, what are you doing? And I knew the character wasn't going to be a joke. He was going to be a success story, an underdog success story. So people, like some media outlets, when I first debuted, were saying, what's WWE doing now? What are they doing now? But then once I had my first match, all that stuff went away. And then when Bischoff did that podcast, he called me right after, and he said, he was doing I think his Patreon podcast the following day. Will you come on and talk about it? I said, okay, no problem. So I'm on there talking, but I said, I'm going to email you a letter that was given to me that I have trouble reading, so I need you to read it. So sorry about the letter. About a year before, I was in Gatlinburg, Tennessee. I call him a kid. He's probably 20s, early 20s, comes up to me. He's got his wife, picture with Eugene, autographed picture of Eugene. Then he hands me his phone. It's a text from his mother to me. His name is Rich. Rich was always the weird kid growing up. His younger sister, younger brother, father isn't in the picture. Mom's going to school, working 2 jobs, and he was always picked on. But when Eugene came on TV, he realized that it's not bad to be the person that, is a little bit different, and you can succeed. And now the kid's got a great job. He's got a house and he's got a wife. I'm trying to read this text and I'm just crying in the middle of the autograph signing. So I had him send it to me. We became friends on Facebook, and then I tried to read it a couple more times. So I'm on Bischoff's podcast. So, okay, read that letter. And he starts to read this letter and he starts crying. And he's like, Eugene was an inspiration. It was a good thing. Today's climate just looks at the overhead, what the headline is. Oh, that's horrible. You shouldn't do that. Anybody that ever said anything like that never had anybody in their family that had, special needs or disability. I've gotten so much more positive affirmation. Even I worked a show the other day, and the kid I was wrestling, he said, I'm really like your character. Give me inspiration. I'm on the autism spectrum. Start crying again right in the locker room with this kid. Mm-hmm. I mean, and it's really touching and humbling to think, I contributed to a audience that wasn't being represented. And I think, people that say, oh, you shouldn't have done that. Well, then when is any, group going to get represented on a television show that's entertainment if we don't do it?
Because I think also something that people don't talk about enough is that the Eugene character was not booked to be somebody who is always beaten. He overcame the odds a lot. And I think people kind of misunderstand that Eugene was a lot more successful in his first year than a lot of characters are who would come in a kind of, I guess, generic way.
Yeah, the Eugene character skyrocketed and took off when I was on Jericho's highlight reel on Raw and Evolution came down. Jericho told me afterwards that was the highest rated segment in the previous 2 years. Eugene was in the ring with The Rock. Eugene was in the ring with Hogan at Mania. Eugene even pinned Vince McMahon, tag team champion. And you're right, I don't see as much excitement for a new character, but I was completely different. I told this story earlier. When I debuted, it was post NWO, post Stone Cold Steve Austin. Everybody wanted to be a cool, strong heel that got their moves in. I wanted to be a comedy babyface that sold. The only kids character that WWE had was a Hurricane and Rosie, and there was 2 brands, so I knew that one brand didn't have a kids character. I fortunately got on Raw because I feel like Raw had a bigger, I might not have more coverage, but Raw was the show to be on.
And I mean, you also, when Eugene started, you've talked about this, that there were other ideas of what the Eugene character was going to be. You were going to be the sort of Rain Man of information about wrestling. Let's talk a little bit about that part that was supposed to be part of it.
Yeah, one idea I had for the character was Eugene would know all the trivia. There was some show in Buenos Aires in 1972, and he would know the attendance and how long, what the gate was and just stuff like that. And I did that a couple times on interviews and whatnot. I always had to go to Howard Finkel because Howard Finkel legitimately knew everything. I said, "What happened here? What happened here?" And he'd give me just a random fact. And when I did the thing with The Rock, and then I did The Rock Bottom, and I got a pop, Eugene was a fan of wrestling, so like, "Oh, now do the Hogan, now do the Stunner," and that kind of became more of the gimmick than the knowledge.
And you come in, you debut, and then of course there's the segment with The Rock where he comes out to sort of save you from Jonathan Coachman. Talk about that experience that day, how you find out about it, and how important that was to the Eugene character.
So we were in San Diego. When we're in San Diego, because of the time difference, we have to show up at the building at 10 or 11. So I show up, and Sylvain Grenier was friends with Pat Patterson. Pat was in the production meeting, start of the day. Sylvain comes up to me. "They have a great idea for you." I don't have a French Canadian accent. "They have a great idea for you. They're going to do this big thing in the ring, and they're either going to bring in The Rock or they're going to use Rhino." And I'm like, "I like Rhino. Rhino's good, but Rhino's no Rock." And I'm sitting there thinking, The Rock hadn't been on in 2+ years. He's in Hollywood. He's not going to show up. I dismissed it. Some bitch walked in the door. You know what I mean? And we went into the back, and we started cutting the promo. Brian Gerwick was the writer, wrote a lot of The Rock stuff, and he could write for Eugene. So I was going through the promo, and I had one line in the promo, and we're going through it in the back. I miss it. I miss it. I also was on several other segments, so then I have to go work on this segment, go walk through this segment, go through, boom, come back, do the promo, miss my line. We're live on TV, and The Rock just has the people in the palm of his hands. He just puts the microphone by his side and goes, "Your line's next, kid," and just fed it right to me. And it was that moment that people saw that Eugene became a made man.
And when you were in the ring and Rock comes out and you hear that reaction, it must be cool to know that, because you've said it before, he didn't have to do that. He didn't have to work with somebody who was kind of up and coming. I mean, that's a pretty great thing that he did.
They say he's the most electrifying man in sports entertainment, and that's what I felt. Jonathan Coachman told Eugene that nobody likes him, he shouldn't be there, and I came back. I started to cry, literally. And the fans like, "No, don't go." And when his music hit, I mean, it was just, the people came up, and when he walked out, they just exploded. But you're right, he didn't have to come there and do that for me. But that's what a top guy does. He reaches down and pulls somebody up to make the business better. And I'm forever in the debt to The Rock.
And how, when you guys do that segment and you go back, was there any interaction with The Rock after that? Did he have any kind of words with you after that segment?
I'm sure we did, but it was so surreal, it was like, oh my gosh, man, really, everybody just saw me in the ring with The Rock. And I remember we had a red eye out that night, so I'm sure I said goodbye to him and thank you, and we talked about it. And but we had to try to take a cab from San Diego to the airport, and I was just in the ring with The Rock, and the people mauled me, and I'm trying to find this cab. I can't find this cab. Didn't have Uber back then. So then this fan goes, "We can take you to the airport." So I found we were running late, so we got to go. Guys driving through San Diego went the wrong way. We almost missed the flight. I don't know. But The Rock was super cool, and I mean, he's that was awesome for me. That made Eugene and pretty much made my career. I made a career off of that 15-minute segment.